Welcome everyone to today's episode of Black Sisters Birth Academy's Inside Birth podcast. And I'm your host, Midwife Christina Jermaine. And the purpose of this podcast is to provide an intentional platform and community for the aspiring Black midwife who is looking to navigate her path into becoming a community midwife. There is a difference. Our interviews are aimed to provide practical tools and knowledge for the aspiring Black midwives who want an inside look on the ins and outs of community midwifery based on what Black community midwives have experienced. We also want to spotlight and promote community midwives that are making massive impacts in their community, as well as foster ideas on how you too can become women of impact in birth work in the process. All right. And today's episode, we have a very special guest with us, and her name is Miss Courtney Julien, and I'm going to read her bio. Okay. So Courtney Julien is a certified professional midwife, and she graduated from the University of Florida with a BA in women's studies, where her interest in out-of-hospital care and midwifery began. In 2014, she began studies at the Florida School of Traditional Midwifery, where she obtained extensive training and developed a skill set on prenatal, labor, and postpartum care, and graduated in 2017. Courtney is passionate about changing the disproportionate statistics for people of color during the prenatal period and helping students of color find their voice and representation in the birth community. Courtney is happily married and has a sweet baby girl. I can attest to that. Courtney's personal experience is what motivated her to keep doing this work. Courtney is currently working as an instructor and also works as the student success coordinator at the Florida School of Traditional Midwifery, and recently started a new practice with her awesome partners at the Tampa Bay Midwives, serving the greater Tampa Bay area. So with that said, would you everyone help me put your hands together and give a very warm welcome to Miss Courtney Julien. Hey, Courtney.
Hi.
We always got to give it up. We call it, for me, growing up in church, it's like a hand clap or praise. So it's like to raise the vibration of this world. So thank you, Courtney. If anybody didn't give you your flowers or congratulate you for the work that you're doing here in these streets just by showing up and waking up, then I'm going to applaud you and I'm going to thank you for doing it because it's so vital and necessary. So I appreciate you. So thank you, Courtney.
Thank you. I appreciate you. I'm trying my best out here.
No, you're doing good. Let me tell you, just waking up, you're doing it, because I know the challenges it is to just be present and just showing up. Because my heart, your heart just goes out. It's just for everybody. You know what I mean? Like the
Mhm.
students, the moms. I mean, we need help. So
Yes, we do. We really do.
yeah, I really do. So, with that said, I'm going to jump right into today's interview. So, Courtney, the first question I have is what called you into midwifery? So, feel free to give your most authentic answers because we love real talk here. All right.
Yeah, so I remember when I was a little girl, I always wanted to deliver babies. So like that was my entire thing. I remember in middle school there was like they made you like dress up like what you want to
Yeah.
do day, and I wore scrubs and I was like, I'm gonna be an OB. Like that was my thing forever. And then when I got to UF, um, first of all, UF was very, very hard. I feel like especially as a Black person, it it really beat me down. I went from like being a straight A student, like I felt really smart. And then when I got to UF, I was like, am I dumb? Like, do I not know these things? But like taking all of the hard sciences at once, I would not recommend that to anybody. I don't know why the advisors recommended that. But anywho, it really like knocked my confidence down. And I was like, man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. Like, if I can't do this, how am I going to do medical school?
Yeah.
And so I ended up switching my major to something less heavy. And I don't want to make it seem like women's studies is not a credible major to have because I learned so much outside of like the norm. And in one of my elective classes, they made not made us, but we watched The Business of Being Born, which I feel like is the documentary that brought a lot of us to midwifery care. And I was like, that aligns so much more with what I want to do, right? Because I respect people's bodies and I feel like some of it, the more I learned about like hospital birth, I was like, oh, I also don't know if that is like how I really want to do it. So in my mind, I was like, I'm going to do it my way because whatever, like I can. But also, when I found out like there's midwifery, I was like, actually, I'm going to go this way because it aligns more with what I want to do. And it's not going to be as expensive as going through medical school, going through a residency, like all thinking of just all of that together. I was like, all right. So then I interviewed at the midwife school in Gainesville. It was literally up the street from my apartment. Like, I had no idea about any of this. And so then I got in and I started my journey.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Yeah. It's so interesting how life is. And I mean, you just got to trust your path. You know what I'm saying? And so it was already instilled in you to be with mom and babies. And you just weren't, and that's the core of what midwifery is being with the mothers and babies. So it's awesome to actually see you honor the child in you and, with continuing to walk that path. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
Yeah. So that's really
Yeah.
cool. So I heard you talked about, of course, the Florida School of Traditional Midwifery, which is a fun fact. Me and Courtney actually were in the same class together. So that's how I know Courtney. So what route, well, we know what route you took. So the next question is, what route did you take to become a midwife and why did you choose that route, which you talked about, right? If you could change
Hmm.
one thing about that route, what would it be? So we know you chose that route.
Yeah, I think, and this is just after practicing for several years, I think what I would have done, like if I could go back and do things over,
Mhm.
after I graduated midwifery school, I
Yeah.
think I would have gone to nursing school to also become a nurse midwife.
Hmm.
And that is just in a sense of finances, so money,
Hmm.
right? Like I love, love, love my traditional direct entry midwife foundation. But
Hmm.
I feel like in this society today, licensed midwives or certified professional midwives are heavily, heavily disrespected. And, a lot of times we're referred to as lay midwives, like we didn't have an education at all, and insurance companies won't contract with us. So then that puts us in a position to be cash pay. And we have to have our price is our price, right? Because yes, we love this work that we do, but also we have to take care of our families. And I can't take care of you if I can't take care of myself.
Facts.
So then that limits the population of people that we can serve, right? I mean, I don't know about you or most people. I feel like, especially in today's climate, like I don't really have $8,000 to just drop on having a baby. Like, of course, I'd have to work out payment plans and it's something that I'd have to budget for. But if I got pregnant unexpectedly, like we would have to really move some things around. And it's like if I'm paying for insurance, I should be able to go to who I want to go to. So I feel like if I went to nursing school and became a nurse midwife right after, it would give me more, or it would make me more accessible as a provider for people that are on Medicaid or people who can't afford self-pay, and so really just in that stance, like other than that, I don't think there's really anything that I would change because I really love the foundation that I have. Like there, and this is no shade to nurse midwives at all, but there is a difference in
Yeah.
our training.
Yeah.
And I feel like it needs to mesh better or more. Like I don't know if there's a way to make it more collaborative with the two types. But yeah, that's like the only thing that I would do differently so I could be more accessible because right now I feel like the work that I do is a luxury and it's for people who have the money to afford it. And I honestly hate that because I got into this work to help Black and Brown families we know the statistics out there. Black people are more, what is it, 3 to 4 times more likely to die in childbirth than their other white or non
Mhm.
Black or African American counterparts. And so it makes this work harder in that sense for me because I'm not really serving a lot of Black and brown families because they can't afford it. And like the access is hard, right? Like I said, I can't take care of you if I can't take care of myself. Because if I'm constantly thinking about like, oh my gosh, I have to buy groceries because I need to feed myself and my child, or how am I going to afford daycare and all of the things.
Yeah.
So all of that to say, if I could do anything differently, it would be that, just so that I could be more accessible to the people more accessible to all populations of people.
Right. So the thing is, when I'm listening to you, I know I'm going to my analytic brain because honestly, we're talking about the resources of funding. So in the event, if you had the funding, would you actually now still be a nurse midwife or want to seek that route?
I don't want to go back to school, so
Right. No,
probably
no, I know.
not.
I'm saying if the two routes
Yeah.
have the same funding, right? Like say you can
Hmm.
get FAFSA and all the jazz or whatever extra stuff you can get. And then also you can insurance companies respect, did the collaborative care just as much as they did with the other providers. Would you now still choose say, oh, you know what, I want to be a nurse midwife for that purpose?
No. So if things were the same,
Right.
no, because I
So
absolutely love being a licensed certified professional midwife.
mhm.
Again, no shade to
Oh, yeah,
nurse
absolutely.
midwives, but I feel like we have a little bit more autonomy in
Mhm.
some areas than nurse midwives do. And so I don't know, I love what I do and how I do it. I love that we incorporate like traditional things and herbs and all of that. Not to say that nurse midwives don't have that thing, but I know just looking at the curriculums that wasn't taught. Like they didn't have an herb class like we had, even
Right.
though our herb class was a little
Yeah, I mean,
iffy,
it's
but
sometimes, but
yeah. Yeah, but if if the money was the same and the respect was the same, then I would still be a licensed midwife.
absolutely. It's so funny. I'm loving this like session we're having because it's like it causes us to actually see why we're in the situations we're in. You get what I'm saying? Like this didn't happen,
Hmm.
this is systematic because like, okay, why aren't Black families or individuals have the money or the resources necessary to properly, adequately care for themselves? You get what I'm saying? And so are you now forced to be in a
Hmm.
system, say, as going to nursing school because they're providing those resources and that's the only route they're going to support and that's the only type of providers that they're going to reimburse when it comes to insurance? So it's almost like, you know what I mean? So it's very intentional. It's very, very structured for it to function in that way. So for me, I feel like it's now time for us to come up with creative measures of like, how can we as a collective increase the mindset of like we need to create the resources necessary for us to take care of ourselves instead of saying that we don't, and let's figure out how we can. Does that make sense? Like even for the families, like let's figure
Hmm.
it out. We can figure it out together. Instead of saying we don't have, let's find a way to have. You know what I'm saying? So whatever it got to
Hmm.
make that happen, to make to move those mountains, so be it. Because I know for you, for me, even decided to becoming midwives and taking on the training, the time, the dedication, we had to come up with the resources. You know what I'm saying? Like we had to find a way because we
Hmm.
wanted to find a way. So I'm really passionate about us finding a way. You know what I'm saying? Like even if the odds
Hmm.
are against us, who cares? Like, like for me, reading the Bible, like the children of Israel, like if Pharaoh said, I'm going to take away this from you, like, bet we still going to come. We're still going to build the bricks,
Hmm.
these pyramids, and we still going to do the thing. And so I'm saying for us as a people, like no matter what, we can do it. We can find the resources. We can make it happen. We just have to be more creative and figure it out and get over, cross the bridge like we always do, and keep building and
Hmm.
look what we build. Even in scarcity, if people want to think taking away things from us, we still build magnificent things, even with the quote unquote lack.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So I know we can do it. We just have to just put our
Hmm.
minds together and put our, make it happen. Awesome, awesome. I love this
Hmm. For sure.
for real.
Yeah.
So with that said, the third question is, how was your experience once you became a midwife and you started practicing? Because that's a different story now once you're in it.
It is a different story. So the area that I was in, um, it was like rich white people, just being completely honest with you. And I wasn't happy.
Mhm.
Um, there weren't a lot of clients that looked like me. I was the only Black person that
Yeah.
worked there. And I don't know, like in elementary school, I went to a predominantly white school. Like throughout my life, really my whole entire academic career, I went to predominantly white institutions. And as an adult, I guess it was just like, this doesn't feel right. Like, not to say that I was mistreated or anything, but it just didn't feel right. It's hard to be comfortable when, you have to present yourself as like this certain way. And so I took a break from midwifery. I came back home and I got a what I like to call a straight job. Like I
Mhm.
sat at a desk for 8 hours a day. And then after a while, I was like, this is not what I like. I am not a straight job person. Like this does not work for me. So one of our classmates was pregnant and she was like, hey, do you think that you'd be able to cover for me for maternity leave? And I was like, okay, yeah, I have some more questions. I need to make sure that like I'm not coming into a toxic situation. So I met with the owner and the clinical director of the birth center in Tampa, and we clicked right off the bat. And I was like, okay, cool. So I covered for 3 months. And then at close to the end of that, they were like, hey, we really love you. Would you like to stay? And I was like, I actually really love it here too. I would love to stay. So then that brought me back to it, and it changed the way that I felt about midwifery because not that I didn't like it, but I just felt so burnt out from it.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so then when I came back to it, there were still a lot of white clients, but there were more Black and brown clients. And I also felt very supported as a Black midwife. Um, like at the time, I was the only Black midwife, like out of hospital midwife in the Tampa Bay area. And that was something like I did an interview with Black Birth Workers Rock or an Instagram live, and she told me that. And I was like, are you sure? Like it's 2020. What do
I
you
know.
mean? Like being the first like anything in this like in this time
I
is a
know.
little baffling.
It's wild. And you were young. Like, I'm like, we're really young.
Yeah, and it's like really okay.
Yeah.
So that then things were going great. Like there was a team of us, there were 5 midwives. So there was the work-life balance. Like when I was off, and I didn't have to worry about somebody calling me and coming
Yeah.
in unless it was truly an emergency and they needed that support. And so midwifery that way felt and still feels so much better because we also need the support.
Yeah.
Being a birth worker is very emotionally and physically
Mhm.
taxing, right? Like I feel like after I go to a birth, I need like 3 days to come
Yeah.
back to myself, for my
Yeah.
energy
Yeah.
to come back, for my spirit to be like, hey, okay, we're here. And so when you're supported properly, it makes it a lot easier to do that. And so then I was in a really good space. And then the birth center sold to corporate, which corporate and birth work do not
Mhm.
go together well. And so then I was back in that like burnout drain. I was the only midwife
Mhm.
for like a month and a half. And
Right.
then the staff that came in, they weren't supportive. And so then I was like, you know what? And I had my daughter, and I was like in the throes of postpartum depression for a while.
Mhm.
And I was just like, I don't know, I'm about to just bow out and like figure it out somewhere else. And so I took a little break, but then Michelle, who's now we co-own Tampa Bay Midwives together, she was like, "Hey, you want to do this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it." And so now it feels like good again, right? We both have that support. Michelle is a white woman, but she is like my twin flame. Like
Yeah.
we feel the same and we operate the same, and it feels really good to build a business with someone who is like-minded and thinks exactly the same. Like she is also like, we don't have enough black and brown clients. Like, what can we do? And to me, that is allyship, that is partnerhood, that is respecting who I am as a black woman, as a black provider, and being like, what can we do? So we're always spinning our wheels trying to figure that out. Sorry, I feel like I strayed away from the point of
No,
that question, but
no,
I'm
no, no,
gonna
you didn't. It was just talking about your experience of when you got into midwifery because you said I
yeah.
started your practice. So you said originally it was like you were burnt out. So you're like, let me take a pause. And
Hmm.
no, all relevant, all necessary because it's
Yeah.
important to honor that we do have ebbs and flows. Like I told my daughter, like sometimes
Hmm.
when you know you're called to something, it will always call you back. Meaning like if it's and then they'll tell you when it's done. Like when you're done, right? It's like, nah, I'm good. Like I don't feel
Hmm.
spirit doesn't feel called to do it, etc. But I told her like when you're called to do something though, you will get that call again. You know, like if it's it could be like years later and all of a sudden the phone rings, you're like, oh Lord, what's that? You know exactly what that call, you know what I mean? You know what it is. So
Yeah.
it's okay to honor that. And so I'm grateful that you actually listened to your gut because it wouldn't have it wouldn't have molded you or send you on the journey of finding out what really resonates and what truly works for you. You know what I'm saying? Instead of staying
Mhm.
somewhere where your
Mhm.
spirit wasn't feeling like it was honored or aligned. You get it? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
for
feel you.
sure.
Yeah, I feel you, Courtney. I mean, it's kind of like sometimes we have these parallel, experiences. Because even for me, when I started my practice, I was like, jazz. I'm like, yeah, we doing it. And then I felt super alone. I'm like, wait, there's no other black midwife, or barely even black doulas. I mean, literally. And I'm like, this is bonkers because coming from New York, at least, well, for me, I'm different in regard to like, my academics, like everything for me was black. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, so all the kids in my school was black. We didn't even have one like say a Spanish or nothing. Everybody was black. The teachers, I went to church. Everybody was black in church. So I mean, literally, it was like I just lived in my own little black world. And I mean, we saw people of different ethnicities from like doctors or the person in the we call it the bodega or the corner store. So apart from Arabs and different things, but when I came to now midwifery school, it was like, okay, this is different and serving that clientele. But I understand when you said when you were in the practices, how you felt like it didn't feel like it didn't feel home, like home. I felt like I felt like kind of like,
Mhm.
like the orphan kind of thing, not even the orphan. I just felt like it just didn't feel home. It didn't, yeah, you know what I mean? So I
Mhm.
got it. It makes sense. And so it's so important to honor and find what home feels like for you. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, okay, good stuff. So number 4, the next question I have is yeah, so would you honestly recommend someone becoming a midwife?
I feel like yes, I would because we need more community-based midwives, right? I think if we had the numbers, then everything else would fall into play, right? Right now, there's only what a couple hundred of us, and we're all scattered. The more you go up Florida, like Central Florida, like there's heavy saturated areas, and then there's deserts, right? Like in the panhandle, there's
Mhm.
not a lot of midwives up there. So if we are taking,
Everything.
not taking over, but spreading out and filling more of these deserts, then it's like, oh, okay, we're demanding respect, right? And it's not just like 5 people demanding respect, but a bunch of people demanding respect. And then we also need our communities, right? Like a lot of it well, I don't know. I feel like that might be a little bit of idealistic thinking, but like if I'm paying for insurance, I should be able to go to the provider
Yeah,
that I want to
yeah,
go to, right? So if we have people calling these insurance companies like, "Hey, what's going on?" Like if we really had the support, I think it would make everything so much better. I just spin my wheels all the time trying to figure out how to do that. But yes, we need more students. We need more Black and Brown students. We need more LGBTQ plus not students, midwives, sorry. We need more of these people because there are people out here in our communities that want providers that look like them, that are in the same communities as them, are the same religions as them. Like we need all of that. So yes, I absolutely would. But I
Yeah.
would also add the caveat that like it is not easy to
Yeah.
become a midwife, regardless of if you go the direct entry route or if you go to nursing school and do it that route. It is not easy doing this work. So you really have to be called to it,
Mhm.
right? You have to be dedicated and all for it because it's going to build and break you in
Yeah.
ways that you really don't think of, and trying to figure out, like you said, we figured out how to make it through midwifery school, and
Yeah.
we continuously figure out how to be midwives and mothers and wives and part like it's a lot. So I would say not to take it for like don't think that it's easy because it's not easy.
Not a
I
cakewalk,
think
that's
people
for sure.
see
Yeah.
yeah, I think people see like the stuff on social media
Mhm.
of like, oh, the birth with flowers in the tub. And yes, that is beautiful, but talk to that midwife, talk to that birth assistant, talk to that doula. Like, what was that birth really
Even the
like?
mom.
It
Talk
was,
to, right? Even the mom.
yeah, like talk
Like, it's
to
not good.
everybody that was there. Like it was not like that beautiful picture captures a moment, but not the full picture of what has happened. So I think, yes, if you feel called to be a midwife, do it, but also understand that you're gonna have to strap your boots up because it's not gonna be like a cakewalk.
Real talk, for real with the boots. All the way up strapped
Mhm.
for the nights you're gonna get called and all the things. But it's great that we let people know to that to prepare them that in the event that this is your calling, to know that you're gonna have to put in the work. You're gonna have to put in the sacrifices,
Mhm.
the nights, the studying, the tired, all the things. Be safe out there in these streets, especially honor your body. I would tell people, especially when you're driving in nights and all that stuff. If you didn't get enough sleep, please do and tell your midwife
Mhm.
as well. Have honest conversations. So important that you're talking about this stuff, Courtney.
Mhm.
Also, okay, number 5 question would be, what would you tell your 5-year-old self about following your dreams?
To keep pushing, to stay open-minded, and to probably do a little more research on how and where babies can be born.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Mhm.
Yeah. So this is, oh boy, this is one of these interviews. I'm just like super lit up because I feel like I resonate with that, especially for us as women, that it's so important for us to talk to our daughters, even our sons, talk to our children about the beauty of birth. And I feel like it's for us as a collective as women, I feel like, especially us being the first teachers, the first nurturers, that it's important for us to actually step in to our like who we are in our divinity, in our wholeness. And grandma, come back, support your granddaughters, your daughters, and touch the heads of these newborn babies, be in the spaces, like reclaim what we've always been doing, which is supporting ourselves and taking care of our communities. So it's like, I know they intentionally separated us, but I feel like it's time for us to go back in and grab our children, like embrace, you know what I'm saying? Like the affection is, they
Mhm.
try to separate us from even having these kind of affections and care for one another. And I think it's so important for us to actually step back into that and do those, like, connect back again, because they really did a real ripping up. So it's for us to
Mhm.
come back and like hold each other really for real, for real. So awesome, awesome, awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So right now we're going to do something like a lightning round. I call it the one. So the lightning round where I
Okay.
ask you one question and you have to, ask you a question with the word one in it, and you have 1 minute to answer them. All right. Sounds good?
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. All right, cool. So the question is, what is one common misconception that you have encountered that people have said to you about midwives or midwifery care?
That we don't have education, that we just wake up one day and we're like, I want to deliver babies. And that is not true at all.
Yeah, I love it, love it, love it. Next one is, what is one tip that you want that you have learned about entrepreneurship? What's one tip?
Ooh, um, get good people on your team. So accountant, marketing, CPA, because you need your foundation to be strong so you can do the work, right? Like Michelle and I got to a point where we were like, no, we're not going to do this ourselves. We can't do the billing and bookkeeping, argue with insurance companies and
Yeah.
be there for women and their babies, right?
Yes.
So build your team, build
Yes.
your team.
Yes. Yes. Love it. So, what is one tip that you have learned about self care as a midwife, now that you're a midwife?
Oh my gosh, that I have to take care of myself, right? Like I have to because I cannot give from an empty cup. So, yeah, and self-care looks different,
Yeah.
right? It's not just taking a bubble bath.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is really digging deep and being like, okay, Courtney, you need to rest and you need to say that, like tell
Mhm.
people you need rest and
Yeah.
like it benefits so well. So I sometimes I feel like it feels selfish to be like, I got to take care of myself, but I can't give from an empty cup. So
That's
yeah,
right.
take care of yourself.
Yeah, perfect. What is one tip that you have learned about relationships since becoming a midwife?
Communication is key.
Perfect.
You have to communicate like, hey, this is what my schedule looks like. This is how many people are in window. Like we can make plans, but we're gonna drive separate cars, or I might have to do this. And sorry, this is like another thing, but like those of us who are parents understand that like your child is also your partner's child. So you don't have to figure everything out for them. Like let them do it too.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
love that. That's real like facts, boo. It's so true, especially
Yeah.
as moms. We feel like we're the like I got everything. Like, whoa, pause. You didn't create.
Yeah, like I'm like, oh, I'm on call. If I get called in, I need to figure out somebody to get my daughter. And then I'm like, she has a dad. Like he can figure that out. I gotta go, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So, what is one revolutionary thing that you would love to see us do as a people to move us forward in having healthier birth outcomes?
Really, like you said, coming together, like grasping onto that, like understanding, like, hey, we need support in this. Like, whoever is getting ready to have this child, like, it's not the baby that needs support, it's that the parents, right? Because having a child is such a doozy. I don't care if it's your first or your seventh,
Yeah,
you're still like, oh my gosh, this being, because each of them are different. So, really, if we come together as communities and educate ourselves, eating clean, taking care of our bodies, taking care of each other, taking care of our homes and our land, like if we
yeah,
really
yeah,
tune in and lock in on those things, we can really have a strong community again. I mean,
yeah,
think about it. We used to have our own everything, banks,
yeah,
grocery stores, like everything. And now that doesn't exist really, right? We're all like on Facebook groups trying to find like
yeah.
any black banks, like,
Anything.
So like I think if we really all come together and support one another in those ways, then it could really work. Like we could really do a number of things. How do we do that?
Absolutely.
I don't know yet, but
Yeah.
I'm
Absolutely.
ready for that fight.
Absolutely. Even like the collective, like you said, I mean, we have churches, those that go to church. I mean, no, I mean, I don't know everybody's pockets, but if we say, all right, sister so and so is pregnant, we're gonna pay for her midwifery care. Everybody, if you can sacrifice and donate $100 each person in this congregation, if you got 100 people in the congregation, I mean, hello. I'm just saying there's ways that we
Hmm.
can, if we really care about
Hmm.
Sister Sandra and her baby and her having a healthy pregnancy, and we really care, and
Yeah.
we know, of course, some people be frying, but we know she's financially at the moment, then we can like step in as a collective, and do so. The sororities or whoever, I mean fraternities, whoever joining these,
Yeah.
your brother or
Yeah.
whoever, come on, come on. Okay, so anyways, that's one thing.
Yeah.
And the next question, no, is what's one word you would like to leave with our listeners that carried you through one of your hardest times in life, like any hard time? One word.
Surrender. So I surrender a lot. to my body, to God, what is really going on. Because I think a lot of times, especially in today's climate, like it's so easy to get caught up in self. And those of you who aren't spiritual or religious, still you have to surrender to your body, what
Yeah.
your body's telling you to do, what the universe is telling you to do. Because we're not in control for
Yeah.
real. And so
Mhm.
surrender is my word. You have to let go. I tell all of my clients, like, one word that I want you to put in your affirmations, on your affirmation flag, whatever you do, is surrender, because you have to let go in order to bring your baby earthside.
Yeah, me. Oh boy, I love that. I've actually used that in my earlier years before even a midwife. I did nursing before on a postpartum unit, and one of the girls, she was actually in labor, young girl. She was like in her like maybe 19, and I remember it's like you got to surrender. But I was only telling her from my own experience having my own baby that I literally had to come to a place. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to. I can't do this, like I have to let go and let
Mm-hmm.
it happen versus try to make it happen, in my mind. And then
Mm-hmm.
literally dilated, boom, 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 when the baby came. And she said she actually carried that word of surrender as they took her over to L&D. And as soon as she got there, the baby was born. I was like, wow, thanks for sharing that. But surrender is so awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one is,
Mm-hmm.
what is one way that our listeners can support you to further your cause in this work? Say, for example, your business, fundraisers, organizations, anything. What's one way that we can support you, Courtney?
Yeah, so we have my business has an Instagram and we like post things. So I mean in today's society, like if you not getting the likes, the shares, the follows, people aren't really seeing your business. So just kind of spread the word that like, hey, there is a young-ish Black midwife out there in Tampa that would love to serve you and will work with you as best as we can.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And tell
share
them
the post.
the name.
Sometimes just it's Tampa Bay Midwives, but
Mhm.
also like I need reassurance, and I know like just as a person. So
Yeah.
sometimes if you feel it in your spirit, just shoot me a DM or something and just say, "Hey, you are doing a good job," because sometimes we need to hear that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, Courtney, from me to you, you're doing an excellent job. Thank you. Okay.
Thank
Thank you,
you. So
Courtney.
are you. I
Thanks.
love seeing all the work that you are doing.
Oh man, that's God. Like when you say the surrender is like it's God. So the anything, just us showing up, I promise you, it is God. So I thank you for real. I
Mhm.
mean, this interview was awesome. Like real talk, no chaser. It was really, really good. I really, really appreciate it. So, with that said, this is a wrap for today's episode of Inside Birth. And I want to thank Miss Courtney Julien. Well, for me, I call her Court once again for being my guest for today's episode. And if you, I truly appreciate it. And for our listeners out there, you can catch us on Spotify and YouTube the second Tuesday of every month at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for our next episode with another community midwife. And if you enjoyed the educational content that we provide here at Inside Birth Podcast, then feel free, give us a share, subscribe, do all the things out there to amplify the fact of what we're doing here at Black Sisters Birth Academy. And with that said, as we say here, remember that birth is what we do. Until next time, everyone, have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.